Hello everybody, welcome to Spain! Yeah! Hello and welcome to a brand new spanking series of See Spain, where we, amongst other things, will be seeing Spain. Yeah, I say that every time. We are here in the city of Cartagena, which is famed for its medieval, no, going back a bit further than that, Roman history, and we'll be checking out some of the remnants of that later on in the programme. But for now, we start off down at the port, and we've got lots of boats, so let's go look at the boats. They're all down here. It's quite a big marina by the looks of it. Some cranes over there would suggest that there's some degree of shipbuilding goes on here. And again, some wonderful palm trees, which is very tropical. And it's a really warm day here. It's very scorcho, probably around 30 degrees, so it's quite warm. Anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Cartagena first of all. This is actually historically speaking, one of the most important defensive ports in all of Spain. Well, in fact, even in all of the Western Mediterranean, and it's still very maritimal to this day because there's the Spanish Navy have a base somewhere not too far from here. And anyway, if we pan around here, we see what look to be old city walls, and if you have old city walls, at some point it would be an idea to walk through them. With the flag flying aloft, this is very much the centre of Cartagena. It's the administrative heart of the city, because we've got a rather interesting colonial old building there, built in 1926. But this one is the Palacio Consistorial, or the Town Hall of Cartagena. And this one was built in the early 20th century by Thomas Rico and Francisco de Paula. And it's triangular in shape. It sort of goes on the corner of a building. And it incorporates a lot of, it's actually got 3 facades as any triangular building would have. 1, 2 and another one down the back somewhere. And it takes in a lot of the local materials for the design of the building. So they've got, what have we got? Marble from Macael Quarry in Almeria, which is not too far away from here. And granite from Villalba in northern Spain. So they're supporting the local economy whenever they were building this one. And yeah, this is the town hall, the mayor's office is in there somewhere, and it's a rather nice place. At the front of the Palacio Consistorial, we get the main facade, and this is really fascinating. We can see the year up on the top that says 1907, if my Roman numerals are good enough. It looks like the whole of the facade is made from that white marble I was talking about earlier, and you've got these grand pillars holding up the sort of porch over the front, which is really nice, and it's got a balcony on top and a really grand dome made of, don't know what that's made out of, iron. And yeah, it's a really grand building, probably the grandest building that we've come across so far in this episode in Cartagena. Anyway, let's go onwards and see what else this city has in store for us today. Well, we've gone to take now one of the more scenic routes, and they call this the panoramic lift. So we can see that's actually the Cartagena bull ring behind. It's not the best because there is a wire mesh on the outside of it, and we get a more increasing elevated view. If we come around this way, we see what looks to be the castle. I wonder what the castle has in store for us. Well, we've just gone up the panoramic lift, and it's taken us to the top of the Hill of La Concepcion, with cracking views over the hills of this part of Spain. We've also got what looks to be a fine example of a Moorish castle, a Moorish tower. You can just imagine that these would have looked out back in the day. The people would have looked out from these to keep an eye out for invading attackers. And it does look like it's sort of in semi-good condition, but you would never quite know. Anyway, at the very top of the hill of La Conception is the Castle of La Conception, or the Castillo de la Conception. They call this one the Castle of the Ducks, and no, Conception doesn't mean ducks, but I'm sure ducks may have been conceived. Anyway, the ducks, no, they live in this particular, there are quite a few of them that walk and live around the castle, hence the nickname Castle of the Ducks. This is a 13th century castle, and we can only see a little bit of it from here. Not a great viewing platform, I'll agree, but anyway. 13th century, and yes, we're sort of looking out over the port, so this probably would have been the main fort, yeah, the main fortress probably for, well, one of them anyway, for Cartagena. And it was from here that they used to defend the city, and I guess some kind of, or somewhat successfully, because it's still intact, which is good news for us all.
Rebuilt now,
yeah, it probably has been rebuilt. There have been many earthquakes and things that have taken their toll in the area. Anyway, let me tell you a bit about the history of Cartagena while we're here. People have discovered that Cartagena has been inhabited for over 2 millennia, founded in 227 BC by Hasdrubal the Fair of Carthage, which is in modern day Tunisia. This was originally known as Quart Hadis before the Romans came and shaped the city, where they renamed it Carthago Nova, or New Carthage, and eventually it got renamed whenever the Muslims came along and lived in this part of the world, simplified to Cartagena. So that's a little bit of a history about Cartagena, but I talked about there about the Roman history. Let's see if we can see more of the Roman history, in particular one very well known monument that this city is known for. Well, perched over the city of Cartagena with an absolutely fabulous view, we come to this, which is absolutely the Roman Theatre. If you come close and lean over the wall, you will get a good view of what the Roman Theatre now looks like. You can see, well, a seated area with the stage in the background there, and of course the Roman pillars, which is kind of one of the trademark symbols of the Roman age. Now, before I talk a little bit about the Roman Theatre, can I divert your attention to this rather old building to the left-hand side of it? This is the old Cartagena Cathedral, and it is located again with the castle on the hill of La Conception, built in the 13th century, but it lost cathedral status a few hundred years later when it was transferred to Murcia, and the bishop's seat went to Murcia. He's still known as the Bishop of Cartagena, but there you go, that's just a bit of an irony. After this, the locals tried unsuccessfully to bring the bishop back, but he obviously liked Murcia, and he couldn't pay the taxi ride, probably. Anyway, so this is still not a cathedral anymore, but it once was a cathedral, and it's still, well, it's in a state of ruins at the minute, and that's for a number of reasons. The cathedral foundations collapsed on their own in the late 19th century. The church was then restored by a guy called Victor Beltri in Romanesque style, and that's kind of what you can see in front of you, with a few elements of modernism, but maybe not the iconic type of modernism that we would see in places like Barcelona. In the 1936 Spanish Civil War, this again was destroyed. The church was attacked and it was bombed in 1939, 3 years later, as part of the same war. And since then, unfortunately, it's lay in a state of ruins. But there is a bit of an interesting story here, because whenever they were having a little bit of a dig around, all of this wasn't here, and they discovered that underneath the ground they found the remains of a Roman amphitheatre, or a Roman theatre, and they have now restored that almost completely, and it really is in fantastic shape. It gives you a great idea of what the Romans would have done back in the day. And apologies, by the way, for the noise in the background if you can hear anything. They're doing a bit of a sound check in the nearby auditorium. Now, a few facts about the Roman Theatre then. This was only discovered in the 1980s, again whenever they were doing a bit of digging, archaeological digs. And they thought that this had been built way back in the few years before the birth of Jesus. So it goes back to about 3 or 4 BC, which is quite a long time. In 3 AD they decided to build a market on top of it, and the market actually caught fire a few hundred years later, and it wasn't until the Byzantines came back that they decided to turn this back into a market again. Anyway, time grew on and the city got buried, and so did the amphitheatre, and again it wasn't discovered until the 1980s. The cathedral was then built on top of what used to be the theatre, but of course nobody knew that, or else they wouldn't have done it. And the Roman theatre forgotten, sadly. The restoration's finished here in 2003, so this is all fairly recently discovered, and it really is great. We've got the cavea section, is what's the name given to the seated area, which is kind of what we're on top of at the minute. And there are 3 distinct sections of the seated area, or the cavea. Oh my word, that is appalling, that noise, but we will crack on. 3 sections. We've got the imma, media and summa, and I guess that means bottom, middle and top. So there are 3 distinct tiers. And then of course at the back you've got the staging area, and the staging area is 43.6 meters long, with those pillars behind it. So that really is fascinating. And one more fact about the Roman theatre: it can seat 6,000, or it could back in the day, can seat 6,000 people. Well, we come now to our final destination in Cartagena. We're actually on top of the old city walls. You can see a bit of them there, and we've got that old thing that isn't the town hall in the background. I think that could well actually be the customs house. Anyway, it's all very interesting, but most importantly we get a cracking view here of the port, with the Mediterranean Sea out in the background. Isn't it just glorious? Well, unfortunately time has come to an end in Cartagena. We've got to move on to another place, and I don't know where that might be. So let's go to somewhere altogether different that's very much not in Cartagena. Well, just a little bit down the coast now from places like Cartagena, we come to a wonderful town. I say wonderful, you be the judge of that. San Pedro del Pinatar. Of course, it was named after a small church which was set amongst pine woods, probably over there. Would you say they look like pine woods? Anyway, we'll see. And it's dedicated, of course, to St. Peter, who is a well-known figure from the Bible, and it was done so by local fishermen. And in Roman times this town existed, and it made its money from the local salt works, which we'll maybe look at later in this series, and also agriculture and fishing, very important in these parts. Now it's known for its beach. The beach runs all the way along there and right around the coast. It's a whopper of a beach, and there's no shortage of water when it comes to the sea, but sadly they're fighting. Yes, there is a bit of a shortage of water, which is a bit of a shame. One thing that I always have to point out whenever I see them on the sea programs, these wonderful pineapple trees. They're fantastic. They are the best trees that I think. So elsewhere in San Pedro del Pinatar we come across, well, that's all kind of same old from what we've already seen, but we've actually got some fascinating things here. We've got the molinos, or the windmill, which is behind us. It doesn't look like it's, well, working really. I would say it probably hasn't been working in a while as well, but something that does work and is very popular with the locals are these banos de lodo. It's the low pagan mud baths, and they it's under here, so it must be very muddy water. There are flamingos over there, first of all, and the flamingo of course is one of the native birds of this part of Spain. Interestingly, these particular flamingos are white in colour. Flamingos of course are known for being largely pink, and the reason that the ones that are pink is because it's whatever they eat. Whatever's in the water, it turns them pink. These ones, however, they don't eat that particular substance, whatever it is, not quite sure. But we do have people bathing. So underneath here is mud, very muddy water. People just sort of kick it on themselves, and they think that the water here, the baths, have divine healing powers. So who knows if that's true. Obviously they think that enough for them to keep coming back. So there you go. So San Pedro, there is quite a bit here. Let's have a wee look at the map, see what else we've got. There is this, so this is kind of the promenade area. The main headland goes down that way, and we've got just this rather weird bit of headland that just juts out across the bay. And in fact, yeah, that's kind of a bit of it. So that's the main coast, and then there's this big bit just out, and it actually goes across, so you've got a D-shaped bay, and it completely encloses the whole of the marina behind there. So yeah, it's geographically speaking, it's a rather weird place, but it actually is very interesting. So here we go. Just a little note on the muds before we go. The muds have a high percentage of fine and very fine sands, high composition of cations, whatever they are, like calcium and magnesium, or anions such as chloride and sulfate, as well as basic pH. That's acid, isn't it? pH. And also they think it's a great remedy then because of these ingredients that's in the water, the calcium, the magnesium, and the other stuff as well, the chloride and the sulfate. They think that it heals quite a lot of skin diseases, so that's why people come here. And also the high temperatures make them anti-inflammatories as well, for rheumatism and arthritis, gout and the like. Well, I'm just reading now. So they actually compare this area to the Dead Sea, believe it or not. I'd say it's probably not quite as famous, but you get the idea anyway. Approximately 5 kilometres outside the city of Murcia, and on the side of a bitty road, actually it's not on the side of the road, I'm on the busy road, we've got this wonderful statue behind me. Now it's very reminiscent of the Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro. It is the Cristo de Monteagudo in the town of Monteagudo. It's Jesus Christ statue, arms aloft, on top of a mountain. Now beneath him is a castle. It's 149 metres high, the whole rock formation and mountain and castle. The statue itself is 20 metres tall. It was actually originally destroyed in the Spanish Civil War, and this is the second version of it. Now about 5 years ago, or even a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a campaign to get it removed because it's in a bit of a state of disrepair, and it's also not very fair to the equality religious wise. But the statue survived a court case and is still there, and it will remain for the foreseeable. But it's rather impressive anyway, in the way it's on top of a castle anyway. So there you go. Dates back to 825 AD. That's the castle, not the statue. The statue is much more recent than that. Like I say, only as a result after the Spanish Civil War. But there you go. And it's certainly a very iconic landmark, if not the most well executed and up to date one. Welcome now to the 7th largest city in Spain, behind Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Seville, Bilbao and Malaga. It is number 7, it is the city of Murcia. Now the city of Murcia gives its name to the wider region of Murcia, which is kind of where we've been in today's episode. But it's time to take a look at the city itself. And the city of Murcia is spread over the Segura River, or divided by the Segura River, which is this one in front of us. And it's very murky in colour. In fact, it's almost very nearly camouflaged. There you go. We've got a little sculpture in the middle of the river, and this is very much the shape of a fish. Now if we do a little bit of a well, I'll tell you what, we'll go for a dander and see what we come across in Murcia today. We're in now the Plaza del Cardinal Beluga, and this is the City Hall behind me. It's quite modern and it's not particularly interesting. It was built between 1991 and 1998 by Jose Rafael Moneo, and it wasn't particularly loved by the locals. They thought it spoiled the view, and it wasn't really in keeping with some of the other buildings in this square, and we'll come to those in a minute. But before we move on, this building, the City Hall, built with a combination of brick and sandstone, which is very much in keeping with the traditional Murcian and Spanish building materials, although you'll find in a minute architecturally it's just not quite right for this area. Also we see a variety of stacked columns up top. The designer had in mind, whenever he designed this, a musical score, and you can kind of get a bit of that. Anyway, if we pan round, we come to this other building. This is the Bishop's Palace, or the Palacio Episcopal, and it's yes, so this is where Cardinal Beluga, after whom the square is named, once lived. It was where the bishops lived for the nearby cathedral, and So yeah, that's kind of that really. Anyway, we'll come now to, of course, the main landmark in Murcia and also in this square. It's the cathedral, and this is the Iglesia Catedral de Santa Maria in Murcia. Yeah, they love their cathedrals de Santa Maria, don't they? There are quite a few of them all over the place. And this cathedral was built on the site of a former great mosque of Al-Yamia when Jaime I conquered Murcia for the Christians back after the Moors and the Muslims were in this area. He won it for the Christians. The foundations were laid in 1385, but it was actually a further 9 years until building began for real. The building finished in 1467, and the cathedral continued to grow outside of the walls, and they kept expanding. But unfortunately, with every expansion, the style evolved somewhat, so it's left us with a bit of a mishmash of design, but it still works okay. We've got a Gothic interior and a Baroque facade, and yes, it was designed by Jaume Bort y Melia of Valencia. Moving round to the side facade now of the cathedral, we get a better view at this wonderful bell tower. And first of all, let me say one thing I didn't say about the cathedral. It is probably one of the finest cathedrals I've seen in Spain anyway, if not all of Europe. Anyway, that aside, yes, this bell tower, and would you say it looks quite tall? Yes, well, the reason for that, it's the tallest campanile or bell tower in Spain at 90 meters high, which is quite tall. Not quite at the same lofty heights that some of the Italian campaniles rise to, but anyway. And this bell tower took a 270-year period to build, and it was built very much later than the rest of the cathedral. Now there are 5 distinct tiers, much like a good cake. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a wee tiny one up top. And these were built in different styles at different times by different architects in most cases. Inside the bell tower we've got 25 bells, from all ranging from the 17th and 18th centuries, and they've all got a wonderful name. Some of the best names include the Bell of the Spells, the Bell of Prayer, the Conception Bell, and the Gritter Bell, which is the biggest one. I think that might have been one we could see from the front. It's the main bell. And of course, as many bell towers were used for back in the day, used to signify the time, of course, and also alert the locals of floods, wars and festivals. So there we go, the Cathedral of Murcia bell tower. Really fine. So good work all around there by the guys who made it. Slightly down from the bell tower that we were at is the Real Casino de Murcia, or the Royal Casino of Murcia. And as any good casino would be, lined with gold, very grand, a lot of money clearly has been spent here over the years. Also quite close to the bank, which is very handy if you need to, I don't know, take out a mortgage or get some money or whatever. I don't really know how casinos work, to be honest, other than that people bet money on them. Now this opened not as a casino but a gentleman's club in 1847, and obviously, as any good gentleman probably would have played the odd game, it evolved and it became a casino properly. And it's now recently, in the last few years, was restored to near original condition, and it does look rather fabulous with the Spanish flag flying atop there. And this is probably one of the finest examples in Murcia of opulence and extravagance. Of course, there was plenty of money to be had here, so that wasn't a problem. Inside the building is a library with 20,000 books, and a ballroom and a ladies' powder room. What is a ladies' powder room?
Let's have a look.
Oh, right, well let's have a look. Yeah. On the inside you really get a grand sense of how impressive and extravagant this building is. Very Arabic in design, all of the, that's gold, isn't it? I don't know, decorations, I don't think there's really any other word for it. And yeah, so it's really exciting, and not much else to say really, other than I don't really think I'm very fitting to stand in a place like this. I think, yeah, we'll just go back out. Anyway. So there we go, the Real Casino de Murcia. But do we ever get an answer on what a lady's powder room is? No? Just a bathroom then, yeah. The Plaza de Santo Domingo might not quite be the biggest square in Murcia, but it is the most lively today. With a hive of activity, we've got people dancing and stuff over there. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the buildings. This one here behind me is the Almodovar Palace, an 18th century palace built in the manner of style, and rather gruesome depictions. Pointed out, it does rather look like Chewbacca from Star Wars. There you go. Now the theme of the design there was savages and supporters. Obviously there is quite a rough history to this part of the world, and taking inspiration by a couple of beasts up there, it looks like. Anyway, this building behind me was refurbished in the 20th century, and until 1950 was the site of civil government. Now though, it's a Burger King. No other way of saying that. Beside here you'll notice there's an arch which connects to the building beside. And that was a way of connecting the civil government building to the Rosario Chapel, which is this building here in red. And if we go even further on, we see the convent church of St. Domingo, which was built between 1722 and 1745, and has two facades, one over there and one over there, and yeah. This one was, it's actually a separate chapel, or separate to the Rosario Chapel, slightly different, but I'm sure they did share a bit of a history. And there are some notable sculptures in behind, so that's kind of inside rather. Church of St. Domingo, that was the back of it there. And we've also got now in the Plaza Julian Romea, the Teatro de Romea. So today's question for you folks at home to keep you engaged: who is Julian Romea? Send in your answers via all our usual social network links, and we'll pick a prize maybe for the winner if anybody can get it right. There you go. Amazing what the absence of facts. You've got to extreme measures. Desperate times call for drastic moves. That's what I said. Right. The Teatro de Romeo. Don't really know anything about it, although it was made in 1862. Yeah. At least going by these. So it dates back what, a good 150 years or so there, and it's salmon colour. Would you cream, beige, and grey, yeah, so a bit of a mix there with red or pink lettering, big capital letters, the Teatro de Romea. They've gone for a 3D font as well on that, so that's good. And I'm about to get run over, so I better move out of the way. Well, we come now to the final stop in today's See Spain episode in Murcia, and it is, you've deja vu here. This is the Murcia City Hall, and it was constructed in 1848 on the side of the Casa del Príncipe, and then in the back of this is the old Bishop's Palace that we saw earlier. Now yes, I've already referred to a City Hall in today's episode. That was a modern annex that was added on quite recently. But this is the original, and it's still standing. And it was originally a Muslim palace, and then it was converted into the Murcian Council building, and it was conceded or concessioned by King Alfonso X in 1287, and the architect was Juan Jose Belmonte, and it's classic in style. We've got a bit of the old red and yellow. It's more pink and yellow. This is quite a lovely view because this is backing out onto the Segura River, which we started off today's Murcia segment just over there. Anyway, between the rather wet waterfalls and the lovely colourful flowers, this is the perfect place to end today's episode of See Spain. So join us next time, where we'll be taking in the sights of Alicante and the surrounding region up there. Well, for now though, it's goodbye, or what's it, adios. Bye.
the crowd would sing. Now the old king is dead, long live the king. One minute I held the key, next the walls were closed on me, and I discovered that my castle stand upon pillars of salt and pillars of sand. I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, once you've gone there was never, never an honest word. And that was when I ruled the world. It was the wicked and wild wind, blew down the doors to let me in, shattered windows and the sound of drums. People couldn't believe what I'd become. Revolutionaries wait for my head on a silver plate, just a puppet on a lonely string. Oh, who would ever want to be king? I hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name, never an honest word. But that was when I ruled the world. Hear Jerusalem bells are ringing, Roman cavalry choirs are singing. Be my mirror, my sword and shield, my missionaries in a foreign field. For some reason I can't explain, I know St. Peter won't call my name, never an honest word. But that was when I